Well, howdy, howdy, howdy. I'm the Amateur Logician from amateurlogician.com. Hope you are doing well. We're going to think about categorical propositions, a very important topic to master in logic. You will find this in Aristotelian scholastic logic, in traditional verbal style logic. We're going to go through some notes that I composed that very much match what I have on my website, amateurlogician.com. And then we're going to look at the very excellent textbook that's commonly assigned at community colleges and universities, The Art of Reasoning, An Introduction to Logic by David Kelley and Debbie Hutchins, which is a very good textbook. So let's think about categorical propositions. And let me first try to center this if I can get it. So we can call categorical propositions a two-term logic system or a two-name logic system. Now, judgment in words is called a proposition. A judgment is where we are affirming or denying some predicate of some subject, so to speak. We call concepts terms. They're the content words of the proposition. So we have this subject, copula, predicate relation. Now, all propositions that are categorical will be of this form. We have subject, copula, and predicate. So, for example, Socrates is a man. So Socrates is the subject. The copula is the to be verb, is, and the predicate in this case is being a man. So the subject is that which is ascribed to have or not have a certain attribute. The predicate is that which is the attribute to which the subject has or does not have, and the copula is the to be verb, which connects or disconnects the subject and predicate. Now it's important, like I said, that all propositions will be of this form: subject, copula, and predicate. That is to say, all categorical propositions will be of that form. Now, sometimes we can rewrite a given sentence not of this form to match this form. And we should always make sure that the copula is always in the present tense. Moreover, terms may be simple or complex. If they are simple, they're just one word. If they are complex, then they are more than one word. So the subject may be composed of several words. The predicate may be composed of several words. It doesn't just have to be one word. So let's look at some very simple examples. All gold is a metal. So gold is the subject. We're talking about gold. And the predicate is metal. In this case, we're having an affirmative proposition because we're saying that this attribute, this predicate, does positively belong, so to speak, to that subject. All gold is a metal. No birds are rational. So birds is the subject and rational is the predicate. The copula is are. In this case, it just connects because we're denying the predicate to the subject. We're not saying that birds are rational. We're saying that birds are not rational. Some politicians are not wise. So politicians, clearly we have the subject there. Wise is the predicate. The copula is are. It disconnects because we're saying that some politicians are not wise. That is to say, at least one politician is not wise. Let's go to the next page here, if I can get to it. All right. So we have four really basic types of propositions. Well, technically, we have six, but generally speaking, we think of four. We have the A, I, E, and O propositions. Now, there are two properties of the categorical proposition. We have quantity and quality. This is very important to understand and to remember. So first off, we have quantity. And there are three types here: universal, singular, and particular. So when we have a universal proposition, like all men are mortal, the predicate is then affirmed or denied of the subject as a whole. That is, each member of the subject is being referred to, each member. So all men are mortal, so each and every man is a mortal being. Now, singular proposition, here the predicate is affirmed or denied of a unique thing, of one thing. So a single individual thing is being referred to. For example, Socrates is a man. That's a singular proposition. We're referring to one specific individual. And finally, a particular proposition, the predicate is affirmed or denied of part of the subject. Or maybe better put, at least one member of this subject is being referred to. So if I say that some men are virtuous, I'm saying there's at least one man that is virtuous, at least one. It could be all of them are, but I'm just saying at least one. So we have this feature, this property of quantity. Then we have quality. And there are two types, affirmative and negative. So with an affirmative proposition, the predicate positively belongs, so to speak, to the subject, universally or particularly as an attribute. And then we have negative propositions. The predicate does not belong to the subject universally or particularly as an attribute. So given that there are three types of quantities and two types of qualities, there are a total of 6 types of propositions, but we generally treat singular propositions as universal. Okay, that's the convention, and there are good reasons to do so. So this therefore gives us 4 types of propositions, and as we will see, these are the A, I, E, and O propositions. So we have the A proposition, all SRP, the I proposition, some SRP, the E proposition, no SRP, the O proposition, some S are not P. And we'll cover this a little bit more on the next page. But here are some simple examples. So Socrates is a man. So it's affirmative, clearly, because we're positively saying he's a man. He possesses that attribute, and it is singular, because we're talking about a unique individual, namely Socrates. All gold is metal. Well, the term all, the word all, gives it away that it is universal. We're dealing with all gold, not just some gold, but all gold, and is affirmative, because we're saying gold is a metal. No birds are rational. Well, the no indicates it's negative, so the attribute doesn't belong to the subject. Birds are not rational, and it is universal, because we're talking about all birds. The last example here, some politicians are not wise, so not, that indicates is negative, so the attribute doesn't belong to the subject, and it is particular, because we're dealing with some politicians. Okay, so pretty straightforward, but very important nonetheless. And finally, for my notes that I composed, we have the 4 types of propositions, A, I, E, O. Now in the Middle Ages, there's a famous mnemonic, and we still use it today, and that's affirmo versus nego. So affirmo means I affirm. Notice the 2 vowels, A and I. Those are affirmative propositions, A and I. And nego, we have E and O. So nego means I deny. So we have negative propositions, E and O. So the A is universal affirmative. The I, affirmative particular. The E, negative universal. The O, negative particular. So let's look at these 4 examples. Maui's an island. And we're going to represent this symbolically. We're going to represent the subject with a single letter and the predicate with a single letter. The middle letter, which in this case is an A, that's going to represent the type of proposition, the type of categorical proposition it is. This also means what we're going to do by convention is that we're going to restrict the letters A, I, E, and O to only represent the type of proposition. So we're never going to represent the subject with the letter A or I, E, or O, okay? So Maui is an island. So Maui is the subject, and we will represent that with an M. We have the predicate island. We can't use the letter I because we have this I type of proposition, so we'll use another letter like P. Now this is a singular proposition, but we're going to treat singular propositions as universal because we're talking about all of Maui. So it's an A type of proposition, so we get the symbolic representation MAP. The next one is some of the best books are not widely read. So best books is the subject. We'll give that a B. Widely read is a predicate. We'll give it an R. It's an O type of proposition because we have a negative particular proposition, so the symbolic representation is BOR. No atheists are believers in God. So atheists is the subject. Believers in God is the predicate. So we will use T to represent atheist, G to represent believers in God. No atheists are believers in God, so it is a universal negative proposition. So it's an E proposition. So we will represent this symbolically with TEG. Finally, some contemporary philosophers are adherents of neo-Aristotelian philosophy. Contemporary philosophers is the subject. We'll give that a P. Adherents of neo-Aristotelian philosophy is a predicate. We'll give that an N. So we're saying that some contemporary philosophers are adherents of neo-Aristotelian philosophy. So it's affirmative particular proposition. It's an I proposition. So the symbolic representation we'll give is PIN. Pretty simple. And this is what you will get in any good college textbook, like The Art of Reasoning, which is one of my favorite standard books out there. I think it's one of the best ones that I've seen. And if we turn to chapter 5, we have categorical propositions. So we talk about the standard form. So a categorical proposition can be regarded as an assertion about the relations among classes. So we have like all SRP, and we're thinking about the class of S and the class of P. So that's one way to think about it. Other people think of it a little bit differently, but in any case, it's not a bad way to think of it. So here we have universal propositions, particular propositions, affirmative propositions, negative propositions. So we get the standard AIEO, right? And then here are some exercises that are pretty simple. So for example, consider the proposition, some movie stars are good actors. What kind of proposition is that? Some movie stars are good actors. Well, it's affirmative. We're saying that there are movie stars out there that are good actors. It's not universal, but it is particular because we have some, so we have an I type of proposition. Some movie stars are good actors is an I proposition. So movie stars is the subject, good actors, that's the predicate. How about, I don't know, let's see. All phones are communication devices. So phones, that's the subject. Communication devices, that's a predicate. All gives it away as a universal proposition, and it's affirmative. So we have an A type of proposition. Or how about, let's see here. Some works of art are not beautiful things. So works of art, that's the subject. Beautiful things is the predicate. Some indicates it's a particular proposition. The not indicates a negative proposition, so we have an O type of proposition. And there are other types of exercises here. Let me see. Yeah, I thought I skipped something. So for example, we want to change the quantity but not the quality of the following statements. So for example, number 1, all students who skip class are people who lack motivation. So we want to change the quantity. So right now it's universal with that all. So if we want to change the quantity, we want to go from universal to particular. So all we have to do is say some students who skip class are people who lack motivation, and so forth. And being able to switch quantity and quality is important because we can relate propositions, for example, on, I get to it, the square of opposition. And the square of opposition allows us to relate propositions that have the same exact subject and predicate. So for example, if all SRP, if let's say that stands for all men are mortal, we can relate that to the proposition some men are not mortal. But if we know it's true that all men are mortal, what's called the contradictory of that, some men are not mortal, must be false. And that's a whole nother important topic that we need to learn if we want to be good in logic. It's a good way to use our logic muscles. But in any case, this is an introduction to categorical propositions with The Art of Reasoning, and if I can get my notes, which are based on my website, basically. This is the model I use to write the article on categorical propositions with, for example. But anyways, I hope this video has been helpful. Learning about categorical propositions is an important way to develop our logic muscles. Thank you for watching, And if you enjoy this type of video, please consider subscribing to this YouTube channel and hitting the like button. Also, visit my Twitter or X account. I have a link there. And you can also visit my website at amateurlogician.com. I would appreciate it. Subscribe to my newsletter. It's one way to keep in touch with me, and I can point out my various activities and projects and give some recommendations there. Thanks for watching, and be well.